So I guess a little bit of history. So the PhilLab as a whole is about 5 years old. They just recently, a few years ago, received a SSHRC partnership grant for research for about $5.5 million. So that's spread out over about 5 years, ending in 2023. So the goal, I guess, is that in the next 4 years now, that each of the hubs then builds kind of their own identity in their regions, partnering with community foundations and organizations, both grant making and grant receiving, and that once this funding is gone from SSHRC in about 5 years, 4 years, that these hubs can kind of live on and be a part of that network of philanthropy in the region. So I guess to kind of boil it down, and you can ask me questions after or send me an email, because we're also right now in the very, very beginning stages of building what this Atlantic Hub looks like. So we're, again, also open to this idea of collaboration and working with community foundations for what is, what does the region need? What are these vital conversations? As we keep saying, what are these vital conversations that we need to have in communities to really build that network and to really, as Arthur was saying, I think it's really important to look at that transfer from wealth to well-being. Just because there's a lot of wealth, which there is a lot of wealth in Atlantic Canada, undoubtedly. So how do we transfer this wealth into well-being, and how can we facilitate that in kind of the best way? And so as a network and as a partnership, the network is looking to, I guess, build those bridges and help, not just in Nova Scotia, because we see it already happening with the community foundations and rural community foundations, and then in Olneweg, those collaborations are happening. But we're looking now, okay, as kind of like you were saying, Stephanie, about the roadmap. There really isn't one. So it's this is really the first kind of prime example of what that could look like. And so how do we build that into Atlantic Canada? Now looking at New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and PEI for kind of what are the best practices? How does this work? How can this work? And so our, I guess, mandate is, like I said, both research and outreach. So what we actually offer, we can apply for, through partnerships with community foundations, pots of money that are worth $15,000. So these pots of money can go towards research projects or conference planning, or again, it's this very open idea of how can we best give us your best ideas on your most challenging things. How can where do we as researchers, where do we as university partners working with communities, where do we fit in, and how can we build these best practices and these this conversation around philanthropy? How can this transfer into on the ground, feet in the street action happening in communities? So I guess that's what our role comes in, is as researchers, these amazing things are happening. So is there a way to change this maybe into policy or into action and legislation from different parts of the government, but as well other areas and other sectors in the private sector as well. So I guess basically and I'm really happy to be here because I'm meeting a lot of key players in some really important organizations here in Nova Scotia, and we're really trying to build from the ground up with partners, and what these partners look like. There is sort of this kind of idea of commitment. There is sort of a formal process of becoming a partner. There's a form to fill out for the SSHRC grant, and basically what that looks like is we want to make sure that our partners and that the network that we build is a productive one, so that partners are able to contribute. Whether that is their time, whether it's people working on research projects together, building those projects together. A partner in Ontario donated some space, so there was office space for graduate students to do some of the research as well. There's opportunities, to collaborate on conferences and events, and so there's a whole host of ways that communities can get involved and that organizations can get involved. Again, we're a very new organization, so it's hard to be really specific because there really are no specifics, and there really are, like I said, this roadmap that we kind of want to build together with people in Nova Scotia, but then bringing it out to all of Atlantic Canada. And I should specify the hub itself is based in Newfoundland at Grenfell campus, is the kind of the university hub. And then we've also got recently added a partner at Cape Breton University, and are looking again to kind of broaden that net to kind of make sure that that happens. And because we really just started in March of this year, so not even 2 months old. So we're right now in the process of building that network, and the way that the research side of things is going to be very thematic. So looking at, okay, is there a pocket of research happening with Indigenous communities? Is there a pocket of research happening on environmental issues in communities? Are we looking at social development? Are we looking at economic development? So those research pockets, and you're saying definitely when you're looking at all the different cultures, will come from ideally communities, which is the hope and the goal of this hub. So working with those community partners, it shifts that notion of research that traditionally has been researchers walking into a community and saying, this is our research project, as opposed to, okay, we want communities and organizations to come to us and say, X, Y, we want to look at X, Y, and Z, this is what's important to us. We would like some help in doing this, whether that's through funding, whether that's through, getting a graduate student intern in our organization, or, so there's, like I said, a variety of ways that could happen. So again, we're super open to those ways, and definitely will be interested in, building those connections and relationships.